Just as we banned Oko Thief of Crowns, just as we got rid of Once Upon a Time, we thought that we could live in modern in peace. Until Ikoria came out and completely ruined everything. Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and if you have not read the news on MTG, Ikoria has just completely turned all the non-rotating formats on their heads because the companions have turned out to be completely broken. The disadvantage to these companions actually end up being a huge advantage because if you can't play one, then you don't get the advantage. So we're going to go over, basically what's been going on since Ikoria has been released, and we're going to go over the companions. So, let's just start off by talking about Ikoria's release on Magic the Gathering Online. It was super bugged. It was bugged out like crazy. We're talking Oko Thief of Crowns was not removing abilities in Legacy. It would turn something into an elk, but all the abilities remained. And then we had Leonin Arbiter. Basically, you couldn't pay 2 mana in order to look through your library. It was broken. It basically said this thing, and for 2 mana, you can't search your library anymore. And then we had Ether Gust. If you tried to target something, it didn't give you the option to put on the top or bottom of your library when you got targeted. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. This one's hilarious. Get this. This is bugged too. So you've got no cards in your library. You have Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and if you try to draw a card, you win the game if you draw from an empty library. Nope. You lose the game. I can't imagine the faces of the Dimir Inverter players when they got this Jace, Wielder of Mysteries in play, try to draw for the win, and then all of a sudden they've lost. That's hilarious. Underworld Breach. It was supposed to be banned in Legacy, but not anymore. And for some reason, it was unbanned temporarily. Now, all those problems have been fixed. One problem that has not been fixed is Gyruda, Doom of the Depths. That's one of the new companions. This card is banned in basically, I think, all the constructed formats on Magic the Gathering Online. According to Magic Online, it's screwing up Leyline of the Void effects, like it's not working or something to that effect. Something's messed up that they have to ban the thing. So anyway, it's temporarily banned in I think all non-limited formats. Until they can fix the problem. I think that's the only outstanding problem at this time. All the other problems, however, have been fixed. Now let's talk the companions, because that's basically the entire story right now, are the companions. The companions. If you are playing Modern, Legacy, Vintage, I'm not exactly sure what the environment looks like in Pioneer, but basically all the other formats, oh my god, the companions are taking over. You either are playing a companion deck, or you're not. And frankly, if you're not, you better have a really good reason. Otherwise, you're playing one less card. I think the companions were actually ridiculously underrated. Now that you look at it, yeah, if you have a companion, you start off with an 8-card hand. If your opponent doesn't have a companion, they don't. You can draw that companion at any time that you want. Just pull it straight out of your ass. So the companions are amazing if you can fit it into your deck. And the companions, not everyone can play them. So one of the big companions right now is Yorion Sky Nomad. Now this companion is seeing play in the Soul Herder deck and in some control decks. There have been a lot of big modern events happening over the weekend. Several Soul Herder decks made the top 8 of those events. So the downside is you got to play with an 80-card deck. You got to play with 20 more cards than you usually do. But you know what? They're blinking things like crazy. They can make the land drops. They don't mind. And when Yorion enters the battlefield, you can exile as many things as you want. It's basically the extra soul. It is literally Soul Herder in your opening hand. You just have to wait to get to 5 mana to cast it. And that's not a really, really big problem for that deck. Huge upgrade to that deck. Not a downgrade at all. Blinks things like crazy. Then you blink the Yorion. Oh my god. It's ridiculous value. So Yorion is one of the new companions that you have to be fearful of in today's modern metagame. But now let's talk about the big cheese. Let's talk about the the companion that's stirring all the trouble, the companion that may not last very long, and I would most certainly compare it to the power of Oko, Thief of Crowns. I'm talking about Lurrus of the Dream Den. This cat nightmare is now, I mean, it's everyone's nightmare. You basically can't go through a league without facing it at least 3 times. I mean, that's basically how powerful it is. That's how warping this card is. And unlike stuff like the Soul Herder and some control decks, I mean, this thing actually is just trying to be jammed in almost everything. I've seen it in Jund. I've seen it in Burn. I've seen it in Grixis Control. I've seen it in Delver. I've seen it in Devoted Devastation decks. You know, those decks, they would love to play with that. The biggest problem for the Devoted Druid combo decks is that if you kill the combo pieces like Devoted Druid or Vizier of Remedies, okay, well, that's it for the combo. But now with Lurrus, you're able to get those combo pieces again over and over and over again. You have to kill Lurrus to make sure you can't keep recurring the combo. So, I mean, it's an excellent piece in that shell. And basically any deck that can run this thing, like the cost isn't that big, all right? So you can play, you only have to play with permanents with converted mana cost 2 or less. That doesn't include sorceries and instants. So you can play Cryptic Command, you can play Force of Negation, you can play Archmage's Charm, Kolaghan's Command, the red burn spells, you can play Riftbolt and Skewer the Critics. I mean, Burn is really taking advantage of Lurrus, big time. The deck is basically the same, except they're stuffing 1 Lurrus in the sideboard and 4 Mishra's Baubles in the main deck. That basically is the reason Lurrus is taking over, because Mishra's Bauble enables so much value out of Lurrus the moment Lurrus enters the battlefield. I think Lurrus would be so much more fair if you had to wait to get enough mana to play Lurrus and then cast, say, a creature or something from your graveyard for like at least somewhere between 1 and 2 mana. But Lurrus is so strong and efficient because you can play Lurrus on turn 3 and take the Mishra's Bauble that was in your graveyard, put it onto the battlefield, and then start drawing cards. Once you got that engine going, you are drawing 2 cards a turn if you do not interact with Lurrus for the rest of the game. It actually reminds me a lot of the interaction between Emery in those Urza decks and how they would keep recurring Mishra's Bauble from the graveyard. That was great value. And now basically any deck that can splash white or black has access to this value. I mean, you look at me, I'm even playing with Lurrus in my Merfolk deck. It's not so hard to just splash some white, throw 4 Mishra's Baubles, and there you go. And that's how it's going to be, I think, with a lot of archetypes, is they find ways to squeeze Lurrus into their deck, because the cost of, I mean, the biggest cost is just having a shell that can use Lurrus at all. And I think in formats where we're talking modern, legacy, and vintage, that's not going to be that big. That's not a big cost. They're already, a lot of the cards cost almost nothing. Everything is really cheap. So Lurrus is going to be one of the heavy hitters going on into the future, and how long that future is going to be, I do not know. I actually think it's going to be really short. It's warping Modern significantly. It's breaking the rules. I mean, so long as Mishra's Bauble is in the format, I mean, it's breaking the no more 0 mana spell rule. And you could say maybe it's time for Mishra's Bauble to go. Mishra's Bauble might in fact get axed for the sins of Lurrus. We're going to have to wait and see what Wizards of the Coast is going to do, because, I mean, something has to be done. Something has to be done, and hopefully fast. There's a lot of people, I mean, they're getting tired of Modern changing so much. I mean, you know, okay, powerful cards come and go, but for, like, decks to just drastically change from 1 month to the next, I mean, it hurts basically hurts them financially. I mean, Modern's an expensive format, and you have to update with like 1 or 2 cards every so often. That's not so bad. But if you have to transform your entire mana base or maybe your entire deck to fit this new companion, I mean, that's a big deal. That's what I'd like to announce, like, something's going to get banned. Do not buy anything, all right? Mishra's Bauble skyrocketed in price. It's somewhere, you know, this morning I saw it at $60. Last night it was around $50. Like, pending when you're seeing this video. Could be 50, could be 60, could be 70. I don't know where it is online. If that's the price online, like, because everyone needs 4 copies. If you're playing with Lurrus, you need 4 copies of the Mishra's Bauble. Very expensive card. So I think if you can borrow those cards, great, do that. Do not buy into any of this stuff, because I don't know if it's going to be Mishra's Bauble or more importantly Lurrus that is going to get banned in Modern, because something's gonna go. And the things you could do right now, go play a lot of Limited. Go play Historic Merfolk. Go play Historic. That's a great format on MTG Arena. But I leave it to the people. Leave it to the professionals here. We're going to be playing Modern. You can watch for your entertainment, but do not invest. Do not invest in any of these cards. I mean, unless you want to, like, hey, do you know what? I mean, it's a pretty good time to grind tickets if you're going to play with some busted Lurrus deck. But just know what you're getting into, because we don't know exactly when these cards are going to get banned. And most certainly it is. So where does Lurrus stand on the power level of busted brokenness? Is it Hogak broken? Or is it Oko broken? And honestly, it feels actually so much like Oko. It's in that Oko territory. Oko was this incredibly good value card that could only be played in a very narrow range of, maybe not too narrow, but basically the only decks that were allowed to exist in Modern at the time were the Oko decks. If you could play Oko, life is great. It is wonderful. You get a fresh breath of life every single day. However, if you could not play Oko, your life sucked. It was just miserable. I mean, unless you're like Eldrazi, Tron, Mono Red Prowess, or Dredge. But aside from that, there weren't a whole lot of options. You either played an Oko deck, or you just weren't really playing Modern. And it sort of looks like that's where it's going with Lurrus. Like, as far as I can tell, listening, like there's just not many people not playing with a companion right now. These companions really rocked Modern hard. And I'm seeing diversity with Lurrus. I really am. I'm hearing about all sorts of new other decks that are trying to adapt with it. But that's the same thing with the Oko thing. Life is great so long as everyone can play Oko and everyone agrees to play with Oko. But you know what? At some point, you get tired of Oko. You get tired of the play patterns. And frankly, I'm already pretty tired of Lurrus getting back that stupid Mishra's Bauble. That's actually really annoying. I hate that interaction. And so, if everyone's playing with the Lurrus deck, this is going to get boring really quickly. I really do like this sort of idea, this concept that we could just grab a creature from our sideboard and put it into play. And I don't know, is it that there's just not enough companions? Or is it that these few companions are just too good? Maybe if there were like 100 companions and there were many different options, things could be different. But instead we've got very few companions, and only few of them are really playable, and then from the very few pool that are playable, you got to play them. I mean, this is just a personal preference of mine. I wouldn't mind if this game turned into like some sort of semi-commander where we could just grab a legendary creature from our sideboard and put it into play once a game, just like as we do with the companions. And then the companion cards could be like these good companions, but they have a clause attached to them because they're so good. That's just a personal preference, because I think it's cool that we can like pull a creature from the sideboard into the game. It would further help mitigate mulligans, and it can somewhat structure the type of style or deck that you have. But because we've got so few of these sort of effects, that we're just constantly seeing them. So it's either we need to like break open the world, we have tons of companions, or I guess we've got to axe all of them that are playable so that none exist. That's sort of what it looks like. And Lurrus might have been just like too good in the first place. That was just clearly built to be broken in Modern or Legacy, because we're the decks that you can basically flash back any of the 1-mana or 2-mana cards. It's not really that big of a restriction, It's not really that big of a restriction. But anyway, that's all I have. Those are my only thoughts on this matter. This is going to be the Lurrus world. How long this card is going to be around, it's going to be very interesting because of the feedback we've been giving Wizards regarding things like Oko Thief of Crowns and Hogak. Like, we're very upset if these cards exist for too long. Like, people do not like it. This is clearly a problem. Why are you going to wait? Do not wait too long, Wizards, to take action make the right decision. But we're going to see when and what, and yeah, when it's going to happen and what, because who knows, it might not be Lurrus, it could be Mishra's Bauble, just to see how things pan out. Anyway, let me know your comments or your feelings about the modern format and Lurrus below. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, talking about how the companions have rocked modern.